Hello and welcome to Profiles in Risk. This is your host, Tony Cañas, and today I have with me Cole Winans. I should have asked him how to pronounce his last name before we started recording. Cole Winans, CEO of Flyreel. Cole, thank you for being here with us. First of all, how do you actually pronounce your name?
It's Winans, but Winans is
Winans.
Yeah.
Okay. Cole Winans, awesome. And we are recording right in the midst of the coronavirus crisis, so everybody is stuck at home. It's March 30th. This will probably go live a week or two after we record, so we'll probably still be stuck at home when this goes live. So as most listeners know, I recently took back over recording Profiles in Risk after Nick Lamparelli did it for a long time, so he's a much better interviewer than me. So we'll see how I do. So Cole, you're CEO of Flyreel. Today, before the interview, I took some time to look at the website, and I've got to say, the website is pretty fly. The website is pretty cool, and I've looked at a few hundred insurtech websites, some of which are nothing but vaporware, but the website's really cool. So I definitely want to encourage the listeners to go look at the website, but let's start with give us kind of the marketing pitch. What is Flyreel?
Sure. Well, I appreciate the feedback on the website. It did not used to be cool. We actually just got a new website about a week or so ago, so this is good timing. But
it shows.
Yeah. What is Flyreel? We'll get into the detail of this, I'm sure, but at the highest level, what we do is we offer an AI assistant that it's a solution we sell directly to carriers. And it's an AI assistant that guides the policyholder through their own self-service inspection. So you'll download this usually after you get a quote. You'll get a text message from the carrier that says, "Hey, Tony, we need to do an inspection. Tap this link. It takes about 20 minutes. You download it onto your phone. It turns on your camera and has a conversation with you and says, hey, let's go into the kitchen. I'm going to turn on your camera, pan across the kitchen from left to right, and it'll walk you all in and around the home. And as this is happening, we have our own computer vision technology that's automatically documenting and extracting the data that matters for your insurance policy and for the carrier to better understand, price, and cover the risk. So that's Flyreel in a nutshell. Happy to share more as we go further.
Okay, so a couple of things that seemed interesting to me. And we didn't talk about my background before starting to record, but basically I spent 10 years in the carrier space, and I did a little bit of claims, a little bit of underwriting, a little bit of sales management. So I've touched a lot of different things. And so when you first started talking, I was very much assuming we were talking claims, only claims. I was very much assuming that it was an app for policyholders when a claims happens, come and do the video. So it's very interesting. So you guys are on the upfront, on the underwriting side.
Right. Yeah, we started in underwriting and now we're getting into claims.
Okay. That cool. Very cool. So that I hadn't seen that before. Number two question. So you're basically talking homes. So we're talking personal lines for now. Are you also doing commercial lines or not yet, or not in the plan?
Yeah, we are in personal and commercial, specifically though in commercial. Right now we're operating in commercial restaurants and also in LRO.
Oh, okay, got you. So apartments, restaurants, that's where you're starting on the commercial side.
Yeah, okay. And the reason there is with AI, you get repeatability is a good thing, because when AI has been trained to recognize certain attributes in a certain environment, it's hard to introduce nuanced things into there and be really performant. So there are a lot of restaurants out there, and now our solution's gotten really good at restaurants. A lot of homes out there, it's really good at homes. You throw in a stadium, all of a sudden, we're not good. No,
okay.
It's not great. Yep.
Okay, so a restaurant is kind of the bread and butter right now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so there are, and we try to ask this question to every insurtech that comes on. There's probably 1,800 insurtechs out there.
Yeah.
How did it happen? And I was looking at your LinkedIn. I see that you're a tech guy, and this is, if I'm not mistaken, your first insurance or insurtech play. So how did it happen? How did the idea for Flyreel come to be?
Well, it took a while. I'll say that. I'll start with that. We're not your quintessential overnight success. It's been a real journey for us. And my background is in technology. I'm a software engineer, and I had been creating products in mobile, cloud, AI prior to this. And Flyreel, we actually have some great advisors and board members, and we had a technology where we used some computer vision and AI to basically, as you would pan across a room, it would create an inventory of the things in that room. It would say there's a potted plant, there's a table, chairs, and we were kind of tinkering with use cases and where could this deliver value? Is there something in real estate? Is there something in insurance? And we happen to have some investors and also board members that were previously involved at Eagleview. And they said, oh my gosh, you've got some great opportunity in insurance here to deliver value to these carriers where you can give them visibility into the properties they insure that they don't currently have to make them more efficient at what they're already doing today. And so that was the initial hypothesis. So we actually started with the technology and then found our fit second, which is the opposite usually of what you should do. And
I think most insurtechs have a similar story. When they have a cool tool. Now, how do we find the thing to apply it to?
We were totally guilty of exactly that. Super cool tool. And however, prior to kind of what we were doing today, Flyreel had a couple other cool tools and cool ideas. And so I didn't want to repeat history, create something super cool that didn't generate lots of value for someone else. And so before we went too far down the path, we took this little proof of concept. We went out to, I think it was the AI Insurance and Analytics Conference in Boston, just with this mobile app, and we showed it to some carriers, and we walked out with a lot of interest. And that's when we knew, okay, we can actually do something impactful in this space. And we recognized that we actually have a pretty rare opportunity to use the best of today's technology in a use case that's pretty meaningful, right? We're basically working to protect people and their things at a really large scale and enable these carriers to do that more effectively.
Okay. So not coming from insurance, we are a unique industry, and we're managed by generally conservative, generally risk-averse people. So once you started actually targeting insurance, once you figured out that there was a definitely fit within insurance, how has that gone? Have you found those harder to sell into, or to even get in front of, or how's been the reception by the insurance industry?
I think that Flyreel's been received very well, but we've learned a lot in that journey, and I think there are lessons to take away for carriers, but also for other startups. When we first went out with Flyreel, I think we were trying to sell Flyreel as like an annual license, and we learned how carriers are actually getting inspection data today, paying on kind of a per property basis with inspectors. And so asking them to shift the way they pay for that asset, that data, into more of a technical license was an unrealistic ask. And so we shifted our business model to accommodate that. So that was one of kind of the ways we realized, gosh, how do we repurpose this or structure it in a way that works with the way insurance works today? The other is we're in the most hype-filled, inflated space, period, which is AI. And if you go back in history of AI, everyone's been laser focused on banks, health insurance, so fintech, health insurance, and property insurance, because they have huge swaths of data. And so now you get these consulting companies that come in and say, you have all this data, let us come in for this huge contract and a large sum of capital, and we're going to surface insights for you that are going to be incredible. And that doesn't usually work out that way, right? So you pay the large sum, there's experimentation, but without starting with the why are we doing this and what are we going to, or what are we trying to achieve with this, it all gets lost in the ether. So that was the history in the market before we came in and tried to start selling AI to insurance carriers, a risk-averse group. And so that's where we realized, geez, we've got to cut through a bit of this hype sphere and just focus on delivering results. It doesn't matter that Flyreel is AI. It doesn't matter that we use computer vision. What matters is that we get carriers data that's better, more complete, more efficiently, and there are tangible results that come from that. And we quickly realized and changed our communications and just focus on the outcomes. Don't focus on AI, because it's a risk-averse industry, but rightfully so. I mean, there's so much hype out there. It's really hard to separate what's real from what's not.
So you've learned to market it the Apple way, not the Microsoft way, basically. Don't tell me that it holds. Don't tell me that it's 2 gigs of storage. Tell me that it's 1,000 songs.
There you go. Right. That's a good example.
That's great advice for any current and future insurtech or anybody trying to sell to our industry. Definitely good advice. I saw on your website that the system is API ready. So basically, you can plug into our API and just give us the data that we need. How have you found that side? Because in my experience, there's about 1 carrier out there that is actually like maybe 2 that actually their systems are fully API ready. So how are you finding the integration process?
Yeah, so it's a mixed bag. I think that there are a lot of carriers in transition. There are a lot of carriers that have made the shift to a modern platform, whether it's Guidewire or something else. And
everybody's working on it, at least.
Everyone's working on it, right? And so what we've done is we kind of have 2 offerings. We can directly integrate our API with theirs or their platform form of choice. But for customers that are in transition, we provide a really robust dashboard where you can access your data from there with no integration very efficiently. So, that's one of the lessons we learned is some of these carriers have resources in IT allocated elsewhere, and integrations are too much to ask right now. But at the same time, there is a pressing need for them to get better data and more visibility into their properties. And so we've stood up our own dashboard so they can have access to that.
Gotcha. So you learned the hard way that one way or another, you have to help them get that stuff into the AS400s that actually run the industry today. It has to interface with COBOL at some point.
Yeah, no, it's exactly right. And those are mildly exaggerated. Yeah, but those are surprisingly robust systems, and they are actually getting API support for those that are on those technologies. You can get RESTful connections going there, but it's too funny.
It really is, and the more you spend time on the carrier side, the more that you feel their pain. So we are currently recording in the middle of the year 1 of our Lord coronavirus. Hopefully the only year. So right now we're all sitting. Basically, every carrier is 100% working from home or very, very close to 100% working from home. I saw on the website that you guys have been remote friendly forever to your own employees, which as an insurtech makes perfect sense. But what are you seeing with the clients the last couple of weeks? Overall, what are you seeing since they can't travel and most of them are working from home? And also, is it helping you? Or is it making it harder? But overall, what are you seeing with the current crisis? How are the carriers reacting from your perspective?
It's been a dramatic shift to digital because there's no other option. So, you asked how it's impacting our business. Our business has had to grow to accommodate this. But I think, you're in a situation where we need to continue for the country and even globally. Where business can continue, it needs to continue. And the importance of a carrier and their role never changes. We've got to work collectively to make sure people are insured and their properties are protected. And we're engaging to help them manage that risk and protect their things and their homes and their families. And so how do you do that when you can't dispatch people to go inside or around the home to capture the data you need to price efficiently or size coverage appropriately? And how do you settle claims when you can't necessarily get an adjuster inside the home to look at that? And in an environment where it could be very uncomfortable for the customer to have that. And the answer is you have to lean on digital to the furthest extent that you can. And so that's where we've been focused on, is just helping our customers in this shift, accelerating their shift into using AI inspections and workflows so that the policyholder can just scan their home and complete these workflows and processes more efficiently.
So yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So basically, you're in a similar boat to where I am. I sell temporary staffing to insurance companies at all levels, and at the very highest level, it's usually remote is okay. We understand that there's likely not an actuary in our backyard that we don't know about. Remote is okay. Now, but usually the more mainstream like claims adjusters and CSR stuff like that, usually it's like, no, it has to be somebody here locally. They have to come in every day or 4 times a week. And all of a sudden, the last couple of weeks, it's like, okay, we can do remote now, right? So they become much more open-minded. So it sounds like we're seeing the same thing where all of a sudden they realized that the need is there. And not only that, they've been they're living it themselves, right? They're pushed to go remote themselves. So they're seeing the technology and the effect that it has on keeping the company going, how important it is. And you've got a great point. I think that going forward, it's good risk management for any given carrier to at least be using something like you guys, even if a lot of the inspections still get done the traditional way. Having you on board and letting the client decide if they want somebody to come in or if they want to do their own app-based inspection, because the next time that we have this happen, now they're fully prepared to just take that option away. For right now, we can't offer in-person inspections, but we're fully ready to do this, rather than having to run and call you then. Right. So I think that this is very, very good. Whenever we bring whenever I see a new insurtech, and by new I mean one that I wasn't aware of. I see that you guys have been around since at least 2015, so you're not new. In fact, you're pretty mature for the startup space, for the insurtech space, which is good. That is good. You know how to survive. But whenever I see one that's about AI, and you talked a little bit about AI earlier and how at times it hasn't delivered, many times it hasn't delivered. There's so many insurtechs that where AI is part of the pitch or part of the promise. How do you recommend for insurance leaders who don't have tech backgrounds, for whom AI is voodoo and black magic? How do you recommend they critically look at all AI options they're looking at?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think that the first area to focus on is understand its state of readiness. So what I mean by that is, do the models, does the AI, whether it's computer vision or natural language processing, or further just machine learning, does it exist today or not? And what's interesting is, if it doesn't exist today, that doesn't necessarily mean there isn't value. It's just telling you when to expect the value. So I'll give you an example with us from the get-go. So Flyreel, you don't get to start with functional AI that's super performant and just knocking the socks off in the market. You have to work your way into that by acquiring more and more data and improving and iterating your models over time. So AI companies in their infancy often look like service companies trying to get their first customer to come in so they can couple their technical expertise with your data to train a model to deliver results. And that's totally, those engagements are totally okay. That's how new technologies are born. But understand if that's what you're getting into, or if you need results now. And if you need results now, and there is a solution that exists, you can expect someone to be able to communicate those results, right? So what do customers usually get as a result of adopting this technology in market, and to what extent? And if they can't answer that question, they're probably in that first camp of getting started. And again, I don't want to downplay the value of those groups. I think that AI, machine learning, all of these practices are very nuanced. They need to be super focused. There isn't just AI that just does everything exceptionally well. And in fact, I'll give examples of tricky problems we've solved where we need to be able to tell the difference between a TV screen and a computer monitor. Do you really, as a carrier, want your data science team working on that problem for a good chunk of time? Probably not. Well, that's a good solution to maybe partner with someone on and let them solve that problem while your data science team works on things more important to your org. That's an example of pick and choose your battles, right? Just because someone's showing up and they don't have a model in market, it's not that they have no value. You can listen, but set your expectations accordingly. So that's where I would start, is just know where you're starting. Is there a product there that's ready to go or not? And if there is, people should be able to communicate the results of that pretty readily.
I love that, because that is a succinct question, and I'm putting myself in the shoes. If I'm the chief underwriting officer or the chief claims officer, I run into at ITC, assuming ITC happens this year, right? I'm at ITC 2020. I run into what looks a really cool technology. Yeah. By asking that question, I can quickly figure out whether the conversation should be with me or whether it should be with my head of innovation, or whether it should be with my head of venture capital, right? Some carriers have that nowadays, right? Is this something that can help me, 6 months from now, or is this something that maybe we want to invest in, help you get to where you need to be, so that it'll help me then and provide a payback.
Right.
So okay, got that. That makes a lot of sense. Are there any, kind of the second side of that question? Are there any are there any? Let me think of the word. I'll probably have to edit myself thinking.
No, that's fine.
cut the time down. Okay. Are there any no-nos or any big tells? Or what can I look for? What is like the one or two things that if I see that indicates that this is likely not still in the creation period, but rather it just hasn't worked. They've tried and it just hasn't worked. How can I quickly vet that? Is there a way to kind of vet that as much as possible?
There is a tell. And it's usually, what problem are you solving? And why are you confident you can solve it? If you can't answer that, then what you have is probably a group of I would say, in the best case, which we should assume, a group of talented engineers searching for a problem to solve, looking for potentially resources that afford them the opportunity to solve that problem. And those can sometimes be worthwhile adventures to go down. However, they're super risky. So just understand you're taking the risk more of like an early stage investor, that you're betting on a team and nothing else. You're betting on the people. So the early tell is, they should be able to come in and say which problem they're solving and how they think they're going to get there minimally. So that's in a case where, you have a promising hint or indicator that someone will actually be able to create this and have meaningful impact. And then, for the tell of whether or not it really exists today, someone should be able to just say, hey, 30% of the time we catch critical risks and hazards and properties that are scanned. So it's kind of that type of conversation up front that I think needs to be had.
Okay, and I don't remember if you mentioned this originally. I'm kind of going back to the very beginning of the conversation, but is the solution white labeled? So my policyholders, do they know that this is Flyreel, or is it completely white label, or do you have both options?
We have both options, yeah. So I would say we're probably about half and half. There's an app in the App Store that's generically branded that when customers put in their inspection code, it repurposes the interface and makes it white labeled. We also do full-fledged white labeling. So there are a lot of options. I mean, our goal is laser focused on our customers, the carriers, and equipping them with the best technology to get the best data and deliver the best experience. So we're happy to take back seat there and just be the core enabler.
Got it. Perfect. I'm curious. I know that a lot of insurtechs listen to us, and partially you're talking to the competition, but you're all trying to do different things. But for the insurtech founders and early employees out there, which conferences? Because there's just an incredible amount of insurtech and insurance conferences, or there used to be before the world came to a halt. Hopefully, they'll continue to be later this year. Which conferences did you find really provided value?
This is such an amazing market that most of the conferences we've been to have provided considerable value. I'll tell you the ones that we've really enjoyed, ITC for sure, OnRamp, Dig In, those three really come to mind.
The usual suspects, yeah.
Yeah, those are definitely the bigger ones for us, and then we'll also hit some of the others. Silicon Valley Insurance Accelerator, I think we've gone to, but it's so funny because I used to be pretty anti-conference, and because in different industries they have different value, and here this is such an interesting market. People really appreciate and get a lot of value out of getting some face-to-face interaction. And I just think it works. It works really well.
So we've always said that insurance is a people business. And even as we're working hard to digitize, insurance is a people business. What was that a lesson to learn? Was there the first couple of years, we assumed that the technology would sell itself without having to meet with people in person, and now we've realized that insurance is all about shaking hands and making sure the right people have a face to a name.
Yeah.
So did you learn that along the way, basically? Because it sounds like you learned it.
Yeah. Oh, totally. And I was really surprised, and actually I'm pretty happy with it. For my own personality, that works particularly well. I like people, so it works out pretty nicely. But what I've learned is that it's a very values-driven industry. Where
very what? I'm sorry.
Values-driven industry, where people, the risk managers, the underwriters, they take their jobs very seriously, and the reputations of these companies have been built over decades of years. And with that comes a lot of pressure to serve that customer to the best of your ability. And I think that's interesting. I think a lot of people assume that digitization goes in the opposite direction of personalization. And digitization done well improves personalization. And so, for example, in our space, we see when we first went into market, we were told no one's going to download an app, no one's going to scan their home. The future of underwriting is no touch, instant one click. And that's so not insurance. That's so not personalization. And if you were to survey your customers and say, out of your insurance policy, what do you want most? Speed and a no-touch experience, or the right coverage and policy? It's not going to be this kind of no-touch experience. I just want a one-click thing. That's all I want for my insurance policy. No, I want to know my home and my stuff is actually protected, so that when I need you, you're going to be there. And so digital and technology should be amplifying what you just described the insurance market as being, which is customer centric, people first.
I agree. I agree pretty much 100% that there is a right way to digitize, and it's a challenge in our industry because we're still very much figuring it out, right? We're in the commercial insurance side. A lot of it is moving from paper, right?
Right.
Like paper this year, right? Like really old-fashioned processes. And on the personal line side, on the other hand, we have a lot of people, a lot of young customers, especially, who haven't yet learned the value of insurance, and we're kind of right. So you have to know who you serve, right? Who your clients are. I started at Farm Bureau of Iowa in the claims call center, and there was one of the very early companies to invent the express claims function. So basically, we would take the call, and instead of just putting it in the system and sending it to a claims adjuster, we would work it ourselves if it was a simple claim. And basically, we would tell the client, hey, this is a simple claim. I'll be working with you directly. All I need you to do is go to the auto shop of your choice and have them send me the estimate. If you go today and they send me the estimate today and you give me your bank account information, we can send you the money via direct deposit today, right? It's supposed to be quick. So beautiful service. The problem is that the clientele, this was 2009, the clientele of Farm Bureau of Iowa in 2009 was a lot of 55-year-old farmers.
Yep.
Great service. A lot of them were like, okay, but when is the adjuster coming?
Right.
Oh, right.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So we no longer send adjusters forms, but when is he coming? Right.
Right.
So you have to know your customer. So having said that, so if I am the chief underwriting officer or the chief claims officer of a carrier, which clientele is it that you guys are perfectly suited for? So who's your dream client? Is it a small commercial type, focused on small commercial, or focused on large commercial, or focused, restaurants, especially a particular area of the country? What's the perfect type of client for you that should really give you a call?
Yeah. So where we specialize right now is, now we're doing high net worth residential, we're doing mid-market residential. Basically, it's volume in a use case. So restaurants is a great one. Some of the more specialty, we're not a great fit for. But in use cases where there's a lot of volume, a lot of repeatability, that's where we can just provide the greatest results. So that's more on the technical side. From the cultural side, where we've seen a lot of resonance is, these carriers that are wanting to proactively communicate their value to their customers and just make sure that their customers are getting adequate coverage. So it's not so much that your company, if your carrier and your value prop is, we do one-click insurance and that is all you're going to have to do, no questions asked, click this button and you're insured, it's usually not the best fit. When you sell on the value of insurance beyond speed, and you're anchored to ensuring adequate coverage for the right price, not over, not under, the right price, that's the type of customer we're after. And so you can see kind of on the edges where we're not such a great fit. Yeah,
I feel like I'm gonna cry here. An insurtech that gets what insurance is all about. I feel like I'm gonna get an email from Bill Wilson telling me that you're the first insurtech guest he ever likes that we've had on the right, because he's always complaining. And you might not be familiar with Bill. Bill is a 50-year veteran of the industry. We published one of his books. We published a great book by him, and he's always complaining that newer carriers, insurtech carriers, and insurtech providers, even if they're not carriers themselves, most of them are not, are always talking about speed and how speed is all that matters, right? And he's like, it's not, right?
Right.
Not at all. So you're speaking our language, and I know the language of a lot of our listeners. And it really spoke to me when you say that the carrier that is looking at how do we proactively get the client to understand the value we bring, right? Parenthesis, before there's a claim, right? Because after there's a claim, they'll get the value. But before there's a claim, how do we uncommoditize, right? Insurance is not a commodity, but many times we get seen like a commodity. And number two, the carrier that is coverage focused, right? The ones to sell the right coverage, not just as many clients as possible, not just a Geico model, but the right coverage. So in my mind, those two things are the carriers that will be here 20 years from now.
Right.
So basically, you want to help the carriers show the client upfront extra value by a visible way to get things underwritten properly, visible and modern.
I think we get this luxury of having a bit of a vantage point, being able to not just, because we're a B2B2C model. So we sell to the carrier, but ultimately our technology is going in the hands of their customers. So we're at this vantage point where we have to be acutely aware of the policyholder's needs and interests as an insurance customer, and also the carrier's needs and interests in serving that customer. And the policyholders, we've done plenty of user surveys. In fact, we do qualitative surveys on every single property that's scanned. And even when we were in the early days with Flyreel, when we would have users go and scan their homes, afterwards, there was a pretty common question, which was, how did the insurance carrier give me a policy or price it when they never saw my home? And then there was this unease of, did I have enough or not? And then you realize they're using broad risk pools and assumptions to lump you into a couple categories and assume that you're just like your neighbor, but you're not. And so it's kind of interesting that this is why I was focusing on digitization. Does not have to be about, it's not about speed. And that's where everything defaulted to out of the gate with InsurTech, is that one click. No, this is about amplifying the knowledge experience from decades of existence and operating, and being able to serve the customer at scale in a more personalized way. And so anyways, yeah, I think your observations are exactly right. And there are opportunities now with technology for carriers to do what they're great at a massive scale. Is now you can proactively engage with your customers to protect them, not just in the homes where you can physically send someone out there, but in every home.
I love I wish I was taking notes because you this last little bit you said a lot of stuff that I really liked. It's escaping me now, but thank you. That was really fantastic. I agree completely. It is so important for us to get to that point where I remember. Okay, perfect. So I was watching, might have been a TED Talk, might have just been on YouTube recently, and it talked about how there are times where the user feels better if we make them wait for a little bit. And in this case, we're right, even if we do the exact same thing, the user perceives it as we've actually, the example given in the video was taxes, H&R Block. The tax software does this verification at the end, which takes 45 seconds or whatever. Well, it turns out for most people's taxes, unless your taxes are really complex, they really don't need the 45 seconds, right?
Right.
What they found in user testing is that the user feels better if it looks like, don't lie to the user, but right, if you have done a thorough verification, it makes sense to show that. And in fact, the internal block research found that not only was the user happier, they were less likely to go back and make mistakes than if they hadn't had to wait. So anyway, what you reminded me of that, because basically what I think makes a lot of sense is not only are we getting great data, and we'll ensure this properly, and if there's ever a claim, we'll have much better data on so that the client will get what they paid for, and it won't be a fight, and they'll have a great experience at claims time. But also the client feels listened to, and I'm using listen to in a weird way. Feels understood. Feels like somehow or another we've taken the time, even though it was through technology, to really understand this gigantic asset that we're protecting for them. So it's a kind of a weird comparison I'm making, but I think that I think that even there is psychological value, which is something we have a hard time. Psychologically, insurance is so hard for people who never have a claim. They feel like they're throwing money out the window, and really, like, you don't see the value until you've had a claim. And 95% of people don't have a claim on any given year. So it's a great way, and I think overall anything we can do to help. And I know many carriers that are focusing on ways to show you the value up front of why you're their client. So that really spoke to me, and I think that'll really speak to a lot of our listeners. So thank you very much. We're kind of running up here on time. Anything else I should have asked you that I forgot, or any other stories that you want to share before we move to our traditional last question?
No, I just think piggybacking on what you just said, from a behavioral perspective, we've seen the same, and we've baked it into our customer experiences, that the customers do want to feel heard. They want to know that their home is protected adequately, and evidence through, we typically at scan with our technology, it takes 20 minutes. What we've done and what we experimented with is adding the ability, if the user wants to scan more of their property, let them scan more, and they do.
Oh, interesting. So even if it's statistically unlikely to make a difference in your rate, we'll still let you, so that you feel, and if there's ever a claim, now we have all the data we could possibly need.
Yeah, and so this is furthering the point where I think maybe this is controversial. I think it's very different from a lot of insurtech, but again, coming back to, for all this time, insurtechs have been focused on speed and as few touch points as possible. And in a way, it's indirectly saying that the customer doesn't want to be burdened by you. They don't want more of you. But that's actually a reasonable point, is why not? I think it's because there have been years and years of time that have gone by where carriers haven't been able to adequately communicate their value. And like you
Centuries.
said, yeah, exactly. So that's the problem. The problem isn't slap a Band-Aid on it and just acknowledge that people don't want to hear from you and just let them go with inadequate coverage and proceed, and then have horrible results down the line. Fix the problem. Show them why. And I think this is showing the example. It's the customers don't want speed, they want protection. That's what they're paying for. It's evidenced through, hey, if you want to scan more rooms, scan more rooms. Because we were told this has to be 10 minutes. If it's 10 minutes, no one's going to do it. And we've had customers say no to us for that. And that's fine. But it's also not true. People will spend 20 minutes. We see customers spend hours. Not hours, but an hour plus. We see hour and a half. Because they'll just go and scan the whole room just to make sure that you see it and then it's there.
And you know what, marketing wise, I don't know if you share the data of how long it took for this person to scan, but it brings me back to my days at Nationwide. I never worked in marketing, but I went through a rotation program in finance, and we worked very closely with the people in the marketing rotation program. And I remember them talking about how at that time, the way that Nationwide was segmenting customers, they were trying to find they were trying to find direct protection seekers. So basically, people who don't feel like they need an agent, but they're not price focused. They are very focused on protection, right? And thinking about it, like the person that spent more than half an hour on the app is probably the right client for that type of company, right? So even that data, if you're able to provide that to carriers, even that data could be useful marketing wise to better score who the right people are that we want to insure. Of course, it takes a lot of regulation and stuff to be able to use it in the pricing, but it can help us figure out kind of who the best clients are for the type of company that we are. So awesome. So thank you very, very much. So traditionally, last question we always ask almost every interviewee, going back to the Nick Lamparelli days, may he rest in peace now that he's doing another podcast and not this one. What's a drink for my homies who are no longer with us. I always love you, Nick. I'm sure you keep listening. So how do you stay productive? What apps or tools, or how do you stay productive in this crazy world that our listeners might want to copy or learn from?
Yeah, so I think the biggest answer is a team around me that does a lot of hard work, and they're amazing.
That's a cop-out. That's a cop-out.
The very specifics, from
how do you personally stay productive?
Yeah. So for email, I use Superhuman.
Okay.
Fantastic.
Our quick parenthesis. Our editor for the blog, for the Insurance Nerds blog, Taryn, swears by Superhuman. And she told me about it, and I'm like, yeah, I'm getting confused. And then last time we hung out, she showed it to me, and I'm like, holy crap, that looks complicated. So a really different email app.
Yeah.
So anyway, maybe we should bring Taryn on to talk about Superhuman. So you're Superhuman, very cool. Okay.
Yeah. So I have a pretty robust tech stack. So Superhuman for email. I use Asana for task management.
You've had that mentioned before.
I use Evernote for notes. I'm trying to think of what else. I use Zapier for a lot of workflow automation, and then of course all the social networks. So Twitter, okay. I have lists, and I consume a ton of data from Twitter. But LinkedIn's a big one for me too. So I've kind of pruned my lists of people that I follow so that those are more information streams than they are, celebrity gossip. And you can ingest a lot of information very quickly there.
In case you haven't figured it out yet, and this is more for listeners, and I'm just more making fun of it. InsurTech leaders, lots of them active on Twitter. Insurance leaders, LinkedIn. You probably won't find a lot of chief of claims or chief of underwriters that have a Twitter and like you won't be able to interact with them on Twitter likely. LinkedIn is the place to be. So if you're a new InsurTech founder who doesn't come from the industry, they are not on Twitter. But there is a lot of talk about InsurTech on Twitter that can get really interesting. Awesome. So thank you very much for that. That's all I've got this time. We're almost out of time. Thank you very much for joining Cole Winans.
Yep, that's it. Yep.
Winans with Flyreel, and I will include the link to the Flyreel's new Verify website on the show notes. I'll include the link to your LinkedIn. Other than that, so if one of our listeners love the idea of what you guys are doing and their leadership at a carrier wants to chat with you, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
Just through the website, or you can email me directly. I'm pretty public about my email. It's you can probably guess it too. It's just cole@flyreel.co, and I'll get back to you right away. And if we can be helpful, we will be.
Awesome. That's cole@flywheel.co, not .com.
Right.
.co. I know that you.
Actually, both of them work. Flyreel.com.
Oh, okay. Good for you. I was gonna say, because the busy insurance executive won't catch the .co.
Right.
Okay, I'm glad that both work. So thank you very much for your time, and I look forward to see what you guys are doing take off, because it makes a ton of sense to me. So thank you very much for joining us today.
Of course. Thank you.